The video begins with how, somewhere in the north, sled dogs were carrying people. The dogs stopped near the mountain, and people went to study a cave in this mountain. When they approached the cave, they saw that there were gates at the entrance. One of them tried to open them, but when he touched them, his hand immediately became covered with ice. They broke down the gate and went on. Along the way they had frozen Vikings. As if they had been there for a long time, they went out into a huge room where there was a chest. One of them tried to open this chest, but immediately completely covered with ice. Another man whose name was Elf came up and took the contents of the chest. Meanwhile, half of the Avengers were resting in the sun, and the other half was busy fighting the villain who shot radiation rays. He was very strong. They tried to prevent the villain from reaching the reactor. If he absorbed his power, he would become invulnerable, but suddenly Thor accidentally threw him into the reactor. Thor realized that if he does nothing, the villain will absorb all the energy, and Thor with his lightning broke the capsules in which there was jet water to flood the whole building, and the whole building flooded. Meanwhile, an enchantress came to the cave through the portal to the elf. She came to pick up the casket that the elf found, but the elf was not going to give up his find. He opened the casket and froze them. He was not going to stop only at the enchantress. He opened the casket and released the cold all over the world. At the same time, the Avengers were in the city when suddenly snow began to fall from the sky, followed by a strong and cold wind. They did not understand where the snow came from in the summer. The whole world froze and all the water turned into ice. The Hulk was swimming in the pool and did not have time to get out of it when the frost started. The water turned into ice and the Hulk froze at the bottom of the pool. Thor knew why it was snowing. He knew that such a winter could only be caused by a casket that was hidden in a cave, and to stop this winter you need to find and hide it. The Avengers did not know where to look for the casket, but Black Panther, thanks to his skills, was able to find out that the casket was in Norway. Suddenly Jarvis reported that the city is in trouble and that ice monsters are walking around the city. Captain America tried to destroy one of them, but suddenly several more appeared out of the snow. They were getting more and more, but then the Hulk appeared and he easily began to destroy the ice demons. Iron Man, Thor, and Black Panther took a plane to Norway to stop the winter, but suddenly their engines froze and they crashed. They reached the cave where the casket stood, but there was an elf sitting next to this casket. Thor tried to throw his hammer at him, but the elf immediately froze him. The elf told about his plan. He said that he was going to unleash the same dark elves as him so that they would take over the whole world. The elf tried to freeze Iron Man and Black Panther, but Iron Man had technology that did not allow this. Then he ordered his wolves to attack them, but they did it with them too. Meanwhile, more and more dark spirits appeared in New York and they began to drive the Avengers into a corner. They could not be destroyed because they did not have a body. At the same time, Iron Man freed Thor. The villain elf tried to absorb the Black Panther, but his vibranium suit did not let him do it. Thor called lightning and hit the elf with it, but it did no harm to the elf. The Avengers were already frozen, but Iron Man suggested the idea. The idea was that Thor hit his suit with lightning, thereby increasing the power of the costume, and the elf turned out to be destroyed. Thor crawled up to the casket and closed it, thereby stopping the cold all over the world. Dark spirits disappeared along with the cold. Suddenly someone hit the Avengers with an electric shock. It was the Enchantress. She took the casket and immediately teleported from this place. Thor also opened the portal and wanted to chase her, but the force prevented him from opening it. The Avengers had another training session for which Hawkeye was supposed to hit the apple, but suddenly, during the shot, their electricity went out. Iron Man realized that the electricity was turned off by electromagnetic pulses. They went upstairs and were about to leave the building. They opened the door and saw the Black Widow behind it. He came for help. The Hulk, he immediately grabbed her and pressed her against the wall. Since all the Avengers thought that she was working for Hydra, but she explained this by saying that Fury ordered her to infiltrate Hydra so that she was a spy. He told her that the head of Hydra ordered her to steal one space cube with which to teleport in time. She explained why she did not contact Fury. Fury created a special frequency so that he could communicate with the Black Widow, but when the Black Widow tried to contact him, Fury for some reason did not respond. Suddenly the building shook and the Avengers flew into the city. They flew up to the city and they saw how the villains were attacking the city. The Avengers were saving the city from the villains. Iron Man discovered which of the planes the space cube was in, but suddenly his suit turned off and he fell. He was surrounded by two large robots. He tried to fly away, but his suit didn't work. The robot was about to shoot, but then a wasp woman appeared and saved him. The Avengers, meanwhile, were destroying the villains. Suddenly a Hydra plane flew up to them and the Ant-Man increased in size to grab him because there should have been a space cube on him, but it was a distraction. Meanwhile, a villain named Modok fell on a plane to Earth and his cosmic cube fell out of the plane. The head of Hydra tried to steal this cube, but Ant-Man did not let him do it. Thor and Black Panther arrived to help the Avengers. Now they had more chances to defeat evil. Meanwhile, Captain America was fighting with the head of Hydra. He sucked all the power out of Captain America, but Hawkeye came to the rescue and he helped restore the power to Captain America. They handcuffed him and now all the villains go to jail. All the Avengers returned to the base and began to discuss the past day. The next day came and the Avengers were already on a mission. They were in the subway and there were villains in front of them who took ordinary people hostage. But suddenly Ant-Man appeared and said that he would try to persuade the villains to surrender with the help of words, since he knows them. But the villains went on the attack. The villains were strong. One of them could lift a whole train car and throw it at Thor. Each was unique in its own way. But the Avengers eventually managed to drive them away. The Avengers were surprised why Ant-Man tried to talk to them and convince them, but Ant-Man just left without listening to them. Ant-Man came to the Avengers base to his laboratory. He told the robot that he could not do this anymore, that he was tired of fighting with villains. He wanted to find another way to stop villains, but not by violence. The robot said that this world was doomed, and that his analysis led to the conclusion that humanity was becoming more and more worse and worse. Meanwhile, the Wasp Woman tried to convince the Avengers to persuade Ant-Man to stay in the Avengers, but they did not want to do this. Thor asked Iron Man to help him return him to his planet Asgard, but suddenly the Hulk burst in. He brought a gang of monkeys who were rioting in the city. Meanwhile, the Wasp Woman tried to convince Ant-Man to stay in the Avengers, but he did not want to stay there because the Avengers fought all the villains with violence and the Wasp Woman began to leave when suddenly he heard the screams of Ant-Man. She saw Ant-Man lying unconscious. She flew up to him and suddenly the Ant-Man robot grabbed her from behind. Meanwhile, Iron Man was fixing the system of their base. But when he connected his suit to detect a problem in the system, suddenly his suit froze as if it had broken. Thor came over to see what was happening and suddenly Iron Man shot Thor. Tony Stark didn't control this suit. At the same time, the Hulk and the Black Panther were immersing the villains from their plane when suddenly the light began to blink. The Hulk went into the plane to put the villains' capsules and suddenly the plane closed and began to fly itself. The Black Panther stayed on the ground and another plane flew out at him and started shooting with a machine gun. Only Captain America and Hawkeye remained. They went into the training room and suddenly the doors closed behind them. Since it was a training room, there were a lot of training weapons in this room. Someone programmed them so that they started shooting at the Avengers to death. Meanwhile, the Wasp Woman was captured by the robot. The robot said that his task was to restore order in this world, but he said that this was impossible while the Avengers were alive. His program had flaws. This program does not allow to destroy the Avengers, but the robot is trying to fix it. Meanwhile, Iron Man tried to kill Thor, but it wasn't him who controlled the suit and there was nothing he could do about it. And at the same time in the training room, Hawkeye and Captain America somehow dodged the missiles that were fired at them. Captain America was able to destroy the control panel and all weapons stopped firing. Thor figured out how to stop Tony Stark's suit. He hid his suit, thereby disabling it. When Tony Stark entered the program of his suit, he realized that his suit was hacked by a robot. The Avengers broke into their base to destroy the robot. Thor tried to destroy the robot, but he shot him with a powerful laser so that even Thor's hammer cracked. The robot easily overcame the Avengers because he knew all their vulnerabilities. The Wasp Woman increased in size and hit the robot, but he got up again and continued to defeat the Avengers. Suddenly, Ant-Man came in and uttered the code that turned off the robot. The robot turned off for a few seconds, but it turned on again. The Hulk came to the rescue. He was able to tear the robot in half, thereby destroying it, and Ant-Man destroyed all the programs of this robot. Good again defeated evil and the Avengers once again won.